Hi everybody, it's Deb from Deb's Corner Canada. Good to see you all again. Just wanted to discuss today emotional abuse. So what is emotional abuse? There's psychological abuse and there's emotional abuse, and this week I wanted to cover specifically emotional abuse, kind of your heart space, how it affects you, right? And so this particular, I like to call it a dark tool. That's a dark tool, and it's typically applied over time and kind of in increments, but they're going to be very noticeable and they're going to be very progressive. They're not going to stop. They're going to be very, like a snowball building up, right? And so it's going to be applied over time, and it's really in order to control you, to frighten you, to make you stop questioning. It's really to kind of control and frighten that target into compliance. They want compliance. They want to be obeyed. That's what they want. So it's geared really to make the target really feel kind of like irrelevant, to feel unimportant, to feel like they have no autonomy. That this is kind of, it's really a breakdown so they can build you back up into the perfect servant. They're going to break you down first, then they're going to build you up into doing what they want. So this is how this goes down, right? So it's to make the target feel very unimportant, very irrelevant. And some samples of this I'm going to go over right now. So physically speaking, a dark triad is going to systematically distance themselves from the target physically. So they're going to stop any kind of good touch. It's going to be either, sexual touch or really probably nothing at all. Probably nothing. No hand holding. There's nothing else that's going to happen here. It's just really going to be all about what they want. So it's going to be no more hand holding. We're just kind of sitting and close together. There's going to be none of that going on anymore. None of it. No kissing. There's none of that. So then they're going to go into rejection. So with rejection, so once they've kind of done that distancing and making that partner go, what the heck is going on, right? So the partner's, what's going on? They're going to chase. They're going to try harder. They love it. They're going to try harder, right? And so once they have kind of distanced themselves, well, next is going to come public rejection. They've already rejected you physically, so now they're gonna make sure they do it publicly too, right? So they've already done it one-on-one, so now it's time to do it in front of everybody. Basically, that's how they see it, right? So this little gem will have the abuser making sure to pay little to no attention to the target, making that target kind of assume or take it in, thinking that they're the issue, they're the problem. This is why, the dark triad has left them sitting in the corner by themselves and wandered off with all the monkeys and has already smeared them, so nobody's really even talking to this poor target that's sitting there wondering what's going on and all that good stuff, right? So it makes that target kind of take it into themselves, take it inside, internally, as opposed to putting it where it needs to be, which is actually the dark triad. That's where it needs to go. So we're gonna move on. So this is also where they love, and I mean love, to see the target exhibit a negative reactive response. So this is where they're going to do something very, very outrageous before you get to a family dinner. So say they've been picking at the same thing, picking the scab. So they've let it go a little bit. They let it just a little bit. So just before you get to this place you're going, what they're going to do is pick that scab just before you go in, like 10, 15 minutes, maybe half hour before you go. Maybe they drive up, but they're going to make sure they start a fight or tick you off, or you discover a name, or whatever nonsense they can do, right? And really what's going to happen here, they love to see that, right? Because really what it's doing here is kind of showing everybody that, hey, I told you they were like that. Like, it goes along with that kind of that pre-smear that they're going to do up the road, right? So it's going to go right along with their smear, because now there's going to be proof that the target was unstable or upset or bitchy or an ass or whatever, right? It's going to prove it to these other people, because these other people are going to be wondering, why is this target so freaked out? Like, why are they so freaked out? And they're not going to know what's going on. They're only going to be hearing from the monkeys and the family. They're only hearing from the dark triad, who's smearing behind the scenes as well. And the target is like, what is going on? What is happening, right? And really, they'll do things physically that will be degrading, nasty. And so it'll be things like grabbing a body part, and I'm talking a man to woman, a woman to man, whatever, man to man, woman to woman, I don't care. But what they're going to do is they're going to grab a body part, and believe it or not, eventually might even do it in public, right? They'll be inappropriate. They'll have you sit on their lap. They'll pinch your breast while someone's around or whatever. They'll do something disgusting or degrading, right? And so what happens is if the target speaks up and says, what the heck are you doing? This is gross or disgusting or degrading. What's going to happen is two things, one of two. So either they're going to feign innocence. What? I didn't even touch that. All I did was try to help you out with your tag. It was stuck. Boom, feign innocence. Or they're going to accuse the target of being a prude. You're a prude. You're not very sexual anyway. Things like that are going to pop out of their holes. So also at this point, they're going to put in a lot of humiliation. And I know what we just talked about earlier was very degrading and also humiliating, right? But they're also going to do what's called infantilization, meaning they're going to treat you like an infant, like a little baby, like a little kid, because you just can't seem to manage your life. So they're going to manage it for you. They're going to tell you where you go, when you're going to get there, and what you're going to do. They're going to start micromanaging your time, literally micromanaging your time. And so really, if that target speaks up, they're either going to feign nothing happened and put it back on the victim, or and then just not take accountability for it, or they're going to try to attack the victim somehow, that it's their fault and they shouldn't be like this and they should just accept it. Basically, they should just accept what's happening. No. And so also, it can really show up this kind of infantilization. I call it infantilization. It's a big word. And it can show up in things like constant nitpicking, bossiness, and criticism. And I'm telling you, the criticism and the nitpicking, it'll get so bad that it's all you're going to hear. So start writing it down. Write it down. It's real. It's happening. Write it down. Write down what they're saying. Like, get a free journal app, whatever you have to do, but you need to keep that reality into your head. You are a good human being. You're a good human being. Keep that in your head. So basically what they're going to do here is they're going to invalidate. So they're going to invalidate the target's most basic boundaries, right? Which is like grabbing people and stuff. Like, that's a basic boundary. Like a stranger on the street would never grab you. So why are they doing it? Right? Things like that. And they're going to do this by frequent explosive outbursts, and ones that you don't know are coming, but are going to increase over time. So at the beginning, you might get an outburst every 6 months. And then you might get an outburst every 3 months. And then you might get an outburst every 2 months. And then every month. And then every week. And it'll just get shorter and shorter and shorter until that's all there is. Nitpicking, criticism, and explosive outbursts is all you're going to get. There's going to be nothing else, which means, honestly, I recommend just trot right out of the room. As soon as it starts, walk out of the room. If they follow you, good. Let them follow you. Walk out of the room. Every time they do, walk out of the room. Show them what they're showing you. And really, and honestly, with this walking out, I just finished mentioning when you need to walk out of a room. What they're going to do too here, speaking of walking out, is that once these things kind of hit ahead and hit, and it's really, really bad, what's going to happen is they're going to make sure that the target is rooted. The target is attached. The target has feelings for them. The target's chasing them. The target thinks they're just wonderful, right? And they want this. They're like, woohoo, got them. They're on the hook. As soon as they have the target on the hook, what they're going to do is they're going to walk out. Now they're going to walk out, or they're going to force the target out through really horrific behavior, and then say to others that the target left them. That's what they're going to say, which is even worse manipulation on top of it, I think. But anyway, they're also going to dehumanize you, which really the grabbing and stuff is degrading and dehumanizing, right? But I'm going to be specific. So dehumanization, meaning you're not a human. What your opinion and your words say, they don't really matter. You don't matter. This is what they're trying to prove, right? And they may yawn or pointedly kind of look away, kind of seemingly disinterested if the target has the floor for attention. So say the target is telling a story that everybody thinks is funny or likes, this is when this is going to happen, because they don't want the attention to be on the target. They want the attention to be on them. Anyway, so next up will come constant micromanaging and lecturing about what you're doing wrong, how you dress, how you look, how you act, whatever they can pick on, it's going to happen, right? And it's going to be perhaps even really kind of specific directives, or even, honestly, even errand lists. You'll get lists of things that you must do, throughout the day, right? And it's really at first, like when the target is still rooted, it's going to be at first just to occupy the target's time, because the target still isn't quite sure what's going on. They're still kind of like, well, I'm running all these errands, everything's great, we're together, la-di-da-di-da, right? But the dark triad's still off doing their business, right? So they know that currently the target, they can't really prove anything, they don't really know too much, right? So they can just really kind of keep them busy elsewhere, kind of to deflect this. It's like a smoke and mirror show. That's what I say. It's like a big old smoke and mirror show so that they can keep doing what they want on the side, right? Like my Why Does the Dark Triad Rage one, right? My video. So basically what they're doing here is they want to occupy almost to every second of that target's time, right? And to prioritize the dark triad being with them, or time with them, right? And so this trains the target. It trains them to just start prioritizing the narcissist's agenda, the dark triad's agenda, right? Well, it's going to really push down, like really push down, and and they're going to be kind of neglecting their very own needs. They're like really important things, like their lifestyles, and honestly, usually to the point where like these directives, these errands, these endless lists, these endless things to do, and these endless expectations that, the goalposts are consistently moving around, right? They're constantly everywhere, right? So these directives will begin to seriously cause life-altering negative consequences, but only to the target. You're going to see the dark triad's life get better. They're going to be more organized. They're going to have their bills paid on time. But they're not doing it. The target is doing it for them, because they're now their servant. So they do all their tasks, right? And so meanwhile, all the dark triad's preferred needs are met. So all of their needs are being met. They're keeping the target really busy. The target can't speak with other people, figure out what's going on. They can't run their own life. They're always frazzled, sleep deprived. That's how they want you. That's how they prefer you. You're easier to control that way. Much easier to control. And so it's going to be really so that their needs are met and yours are no longer met at all. That's eventually what's going to happen. So this also seriously curtails a target's time, a timeline to just reflect, right? If you're giving somebody, say you've met somebody, right? You should be waiting at least, I'd say, a year before, anything really kind of gets too serious, or kind of serious discussions happen, right? So if it's happening like within a month or two, I couldn't have a bigger flag waving at you right now. Couldn't have a bigger one. So this also will seriously curtail that target's time, right? So to reflect and take in the reality, right? To kind of smarten up, to kind of go, hey, wait a minute. And they certainly don't want any of that target supports around that might clue in the target as to what's going on. There's none of that. So the divide and conquer happens there, right? So how does this present? I'm going to give you a very solid example, like a sample. So say this usually happens with the target in kind of they're in a good stage. They're in a half decent stage. They're starting to argue more. Things are starting to happen more. Things are starting to become a little more apparent, but it's not done. And the target still would have a root. They still have like that root attached, right? And so what they're going to do here is they're going to gift you a cell phone. A lot of them do this. They're going to gift you a cell phone, either on your birthday, Christmas, whatever. They're going to gift it to you. Oh, they're so sweet, aren't they? What's happening is that cell phone has been either cloned or is being tracked. All of it. Your texts, your calls, they'll have access to it somewhere else, which freaks me out. But anyway, so they're going to spy on the target digitally, and they're going to include locations. But they're going to include locations because of a reason you don't think. So this is to actually ensure that the target isn't spilling the beans. They want to make sure that the target, or other supports aren't coming through and going, oh, this is kind of weird. This guy's kind of weird. I heard this or that. So they want to make sure the target's not talking to any supports. They want to make sure the target's not talking gosh about them, exposing them. They don't want that. And they also want to make sure they know the location of the target so that they can continue with doing what they want over here, because they know the target's super busy doing their deeds, right? Doing all their stuff for them, right? And so this is kind of like a smoke and mirrors kind of a thing that goes on, right? And really it's really to continue their dirty little side business, which never ends. From beginning to very end will never end. And so this can result in really that target eventually kind of having trouble even navigating even really small daily decisions, like what to make for dinner, should I put my hair up or down? Like really basic decisions will cause them to wonder, is the dark triad going to say something? Oh, I didn't get all of their errands done today, so I don't have time to do my hair. I don't have time to eat well. They're going to start prioritizing, you know, the dark triad's needs so that they can avoid that anger, avoid that guilt, avoid those dirty looks, avoid all that, right? So this can result in the target eventually having trouble navigating those little tiny decisions, right? Because they're now starting to go to the dark triad, and kind of they're having them make all these decisions, right? They're having them make every decision, which is crazy. And so that's going to cause them to be really overwhelmed. You're going to see them overwhelmed, like scattered all the time, jumpy. You're going to see stuff like that, right? Emotional manipulators want you to. Number one, allow domination in all areas, financial, physical, educate, anything. They want to dominate. They want to be the important factor in these things, and the only factor in these things. And another one is they will accuse and blame at will with no real consequences. So that's what they're looking to do. They just want to have no consequences. They want to be able to do what they do, and they don't want anyone to say no. They just want to do what they want to do. And no. They will also make, like, the manipulator will make the target feel very indebted. They owe them something. Hey, you owe me. Oh, I did this for you. You owe me, right? And it's going to be kind of a, they're going to be either feeling really indebted, or they're going to be so afraid. They're going to be so afraid they might even jade. Jade is justify, argue, defend, or explain, which, by the way, never do, like, ever with a dark triad. It will get you nowhere fast, like being on a treadmill. Anyway, but never do these things with them. But they're going to try to make you do that. Oh, well, I did this, like all these explanations behind everything you're doing on top of all these freaking errands you're running and all these things you're doing. They're still going to want these big explanations of where you were, who you were with. Like, turn it off. Say no. Walk away. So they also, the manipulators, they really want to replace the target's wants and needs with their own. So they want that target to think they want it too. This is our deal together. We both want this. No. They also, a manipulator wants you to be afraid or wary enough here to just stop questioning. Be quiet. Zip your lip. Let them do what they want to do. You can't do what you want to do, which I suggest you do anyway, but that's me. But anyways, I'm just saying, you know, it just makes it so that you stop questioning. The target just stops questioning, and they'll simply accept the ever-increasing pathological lying that's going on, and it will increase and increase and increase. But they still want it to be accepted no matter how horrible and how bad it is. Next, a manipulator wants to control. They want to control, and they want to direct any, like, decisions, any choices, any decisions, by constantly undermining and constantly, like, putting down the target. And, you know, they'll be putting down this target, putting down their choices, you know, their thoughts, just putting them down, just criticizing. So the next one here is exploitation and humiliation. And we discussed a little bit of that with the grabbing and stuff, right? But typically it's through degrading acts, degrading statements, degrading requests, things like that. Or, you know, or it could even be like demeaning insults. And when, you know, and when they're called out for these really nasty, horrible things they say, and you call them out for these things, you're either going to be ridiculed, the target will be ridiculed, and they're too sensitive, or they were, you know, or they're going to dismiss it as they were just joking. That's a big one. No matter how nasty it is, they were just joking. And then what you need to do is write it down and then read it back to them. Honestly, start writing it down. Next time they go off, you pull the list out and you hand it to them, and you walk into another room. That's it. Let them face their own crap. Let them face it. It's not your problem. Okay, so this will include degrading and sexually aimed, like, names, right? So instead of calling a boob, they'll say the nasty word for it. Things like that. Just demeaning, like unnecessary, basically unnecessary, disgusting language. Unnecessary. Nobody needs it. And frankly, it's not classy, in my opinion. They will also couple of key things here. They're going to latch on really, really, really quickly. I'm talking within a month or two. People need timelines, a month or two. They're going to latch on. And when they latch on, they're going to mirror. I like this, you like this. Oh, I like this too. Basically, humans are all different, and nobody is going to be in agreement with another person on every little thing. It isn't possible, right? So if that person's not even ever disagreeing with you ever, and they're just matching everything, flag, flag, flag. All right, so another thing, they will also play favor games. And it's hard to explain a favor game, but basically what's going to happen is they're going to do you a small favor, just a really, really small. Say they'll go get you a straw, bring you back a straw from a table that they're in the same restaurant with you. So they've done this favor for you, right? So then they're going to wait a little tiny bit, and then they're going to have a big ask, a huge ask, like, can you buy me a car? Can you give me $10,000? Can you, whatever self-absorbed thing they want, right? So they're going to ask you for something big, like to you, big to you, okay? And if the target says no, or says, oh geez, I can't, I just can't do whatever it is, like I don't have the resources, I can't do it, right? And if they say no, then guilt will be used. And there's also going to be suggestions on kind of where that target can go get those resources for the dark triad. Can you go get it from here? Can you go to the bank? Can you go to your parents? Can you go to your uncle? Can you go to your work? They're going to still try to get you, no matter what, to go and fulfill their needs. It doesn't matter, if the target goes broke, goes bankrupt, like as long as it doesn't affect them, they don't really care. They just don't care. And so really, if the target, says no, they're going to do this guilt thing, right? And when they do this guilt thing, it's used by referring back to this really small favor. So what they're going to do is say, oh, you know what? I had to go all the way to the back of that store, I had to go ask somebody for your straw. Then they had to go into another room. They had to go get your straw. Like they're going to make a really big, huge deal about going to get you the straw. And then what they're going to do is say, and now you can't even help me. When I'm in dire straits and I'm going to be left on the street, or whatever it is going to be your fault. Your fault. They're going to put it on you. Meanwhile, they have caused the problem and they need to resolve the problem. Just to let you know, they caused the problem, they need to resolve the problem. And if that's what you have to say it. This is your problem, not my problem. My finances are fine. My credit is fine. My this or that's fine. They don't mind wrecking that either, by the way. But I digress. And so really they're going to come back after doing this really small favor, and then they're going to make you feel guilty for not doing a really big ask, and something probably that really would be difficult to do, or really something that would break the target, maybe financially, maybe a vehicle, whatever, right? It's going to break the target. So at the end of the day, right, these dark triads, they simply want to kind of replace the target's reality with their own. They want to replace the target's world and the reality with their world and their reality, what's important to them, right? And they also want to replace their individuality. They don't want them to be an individual, going to do what they want, going out when they want, seeing who they want, talking, they don't want nothing to do with that, right? Because they can't have competition, none of that. And so it's also a reason they might over-compliment a target, right? So at the beginning, there's going to be tons of compliments, everything's going to be great. So I'm going to use an example of teeth, right? So say they're going to go, oh, you have lovely teeth. I love your teeth. They're so beautiful, right? And eventually the target might say, oh, you know what? There's a tooth here. It looks funny. I don't know. It's not my thing. I really got to get fixed. They might just kind of casually mention this to a dark triad. The dark triad's going to file this one away. And what's going to happen is eventually they're going to weaponize this original compliment. So this compliment about your teeth one day is going to turn into this. Man, I love your teeth. Your teeth, oh, they're so beautiful. It's just too bad you got that big snaggle tooth in the front. Bang, there you go. And so now that vulnerability, or that small little thing that probably other people don't even notice, they're going to pull that out and they're going to use that. And they're going to use it to kind of weaponize their compliments, right? To kind of throw a dig in there. They're kind of throwing a dig in there, and I'm going to see what you do about it. This is where the dark triad will also ask really, really probing questions, like really specific questions, right? And that's really to flush out any of your vulnerabilities, any of your weaknesses, and it's really to kind of, like I said, file it away for later, when they eventually are going to pull the rug out. They're going to pull that rug out. They're going to make sure attached when they do it too. It's heartless stuff. Heartless. The key here really, if you're looking at it, is progression, right? It's not going to go from, say, I'm going to use a horse analogy here because I used to ride, but it's like a horse will walk and then it trots and then it gallops, right? So you're not going to see a walking and then boom, it's going to go to a gallop. No, it's going to go walking, 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 walking. Slow trot, faster trot. That's how it's going to work. But it's going to always get worse and it's going to always progress. Always. So the key here is to watch that progression. How's that progression going, right? Are you afraid? Are you afraid of the reactions? That's not a good one either. Are you afraid? That's a very big flag, huge flag. Is your belly hurting? Is it clenching? Massive flag. And really the key here to look for is that progression, right? So it's usually with that speed, like I said, just building up, but enough that you are going to notice. If you kind of really look for it, you are going to notice. And it's in order to not give the target really enough time, right? Not enough time to slow down and really kind of actively take in what's going on. So they're so enamored of this dark triad, thinking the dark triad's so enamored with them, and they're together and things are going great, right? And so they're not, and they're doing all these errands and they're doing all these things and they're so busy all the time, so they're not having a chance to just sit with this. You know, how do I feel about this person? You know, like I'm a little concerned about some things, or maybe I need some support systems to talk me through this because things are a little bit strange, right? So really what they're trying to do here, it's really, you know, they're trying to really not give the target enough time to process and to slow down. And my recommendation, slow down. This, you know, hookup stuff and everything, that's got to go. It's got to go. It's not good. So, you know, there's more to it than just physicality, and people need to get back to that. That's my comment in it. But anyway, so what's happening here is really they're really just trying to not give them time. They're trying to rush them. They're trying to rush them through everything so they're not thinking, and it buys the dark triad time. It buys them time, because if the target isn't focused on them and they kind of don't really have the time to focus on them, well, then they're not going to discover much, are they? Got to keep them busy. I know. So I'd like to, you know, and also it's like the target has a wound, right? So the target has this wound. So in our case, in our sample, it was the tooth, right? Whatever, problem with the tooth. They didn't like a tooth, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to pick at that wound. And they're not just going to mention that tooth to you once. They're going to make sure other people are around when they mention it, or they're going to point it out to other people, like embarrass you, like they don't stop. And mind you, you do it to them, and holy mother of pearl. So, and you know, so it's the target has got this wound, and what's going to happen is the dark triad's going to pick at this wound, pick, and it's never going to heal. If you keep picking out a scab, it's going to be permanent, and it's never going to heal. Also, they're going to pour some salt in it, and then they're going to poke it. They're going to poke it for fun. They're going to love it. They're going to tell their friends about it. Look at her this, look at her that, she's this, she's that. That's what's going to start happening in the background. And they're going to use those things against you. So, and really it's never allowing any healing, right? And while they're not allowing healing, they're also going to inflict more, right? So they're not letting that wound heal and that vulnerability heal, and they're not being positive or trying to help you with this. They're just trying to hurt you with the comments, right? So that's some of the tactics of manipulation. And next week I wanted to go over the psychological part, and a lot of these things kind of like psychological and emotional do blend in a lot, and really I wanted to separate them. So that's kind of the emotional aspect of it. And next week I'm gonna pop in and I'm gonna do the psychological. See you later. Bye.